Hi everyone, welcome to Central Texas Gardening. Today is probably my most favorite day in the growing season. It is the day I'm going to transplant my tomato seedlings into my garden bed. I'll go over my step-by-step process on getting these in the ground. So stick around and we'll get these planted. Okay, so first let's talk about when it is a good time to transplant your tomato seedlings into the ground. Typically you want to wait when your soil temperature is around at least 60 degrees or so. You also want your daytime temperatures to be around 70 or more if you can. Now tomatoes can handle down to about 50 degrees and they can survive down to the 40s, but their growth might be slowed a little bit. So spacing is extremely important when you plant your tomato plants, especially if you're growing some indeterminate types, I feel like, because these that I grow here, these are some German lunchbox varieties. They tend to grow pretty tall. They can get taller than me. I'm about 6 foot, and I've had them go taller than I am. So they need a lot of space to grow. So typically what I like to do is I like to plant them about 20 to 30 inches apart in their rows, and then the rows themselves are spaced exactly 30 inches apart. I've learned that that's plenty enough space for these to grow. They get nice and big and full. And they're not having to compete for nutrients in the soil from the ones that are a little further away. Now this bed that I have is about 2 years old. The soil is still kind of building up to where I want it to be, which I know will take a couple years. However, it is a lot better than it was before. As you can see, I'm able to dig pretty deep in here. When I first started this bed, I couldn't dig more than 5 or 6 inches, but adding some compost and some cow manure to it really helped it aerate out and build up a nice soil for my plants. Check out my previous videos I have on how I got to the point to where I'm at in this bed. Now that I have my hole dug for my tomato plants, I'm going to go ahead and throw in my fertilizer down here into the bottom of the hole where I'm going to transplant the plant into. This is the one I use. Nothing really super special about it other than it works for me. So I take a handful of this. I don't put any more than I need to, because as everyone knows, fertilizer is not cheap right now. So I'm very cautious on how much I use. So I just throw a small little handful in there, get my hand and mix it around a little bit. And now I'm ready to put my tomato plant into the soil. So when transplanting tomato plants, you do want to bury them as deep as you can go up the stem here. The reason is that roots will grow out of this stem if it is buried under your soil. So you do want to bury this up as low as you can, or sorry, as high as you can go. So what I like to do is the first set of leaves that are on my plant, I will go ahead and break those off. That's not going to harm the plant in any way, but it will allow me to bury my tomato plant up to about here or so. Okay, I got my fertilizer in my hole. I got my tomato plant trimmed with the lower leaves off. I am ready to go ahead and transplant this into the ground. What you're going to do is you're going to take it out of your container. You're going to loosen up a little bit of the soil on the bottom. The reason is you want to get some of those roots kind of out instead of being wrapped around the bottom down here. You want to break them out a little bit. So after I do that, pretty simple, I'm just going to place it here in the ground, refill my dirt back around it. And what I like to typically do is I kind of make a little bit of a mound right along the bottom just to keep from any water from pooling down there when it rains. And just like that, you transplanted a tomato plant. Super easy to do. All you need is your fertilizer, trim your bottom leaves on your tomato a little bit and get them into the ground. I do like to go ahead and get my stakes in the ground for my tomato plants. The main reason I do this is I'm always a little concerned that if I wait to do it a little too later, when I get these T-posts in the ground, I might end up disturbing the root system a little bit. So I go ahead and put these in now and just put them right along the side of it. So once they get tall enough, I can go ahead and just start tying them off right there. So again, I use T-posts. Whatever you have laying around you can use to stake these up is fine. But I use T-posts just because I have plenty of them. They're sturdy. They don't blow over in the strong spring storms that we get. I have all 12 of my tomato plants transplanted. At this point, I'm just going to water each of them. You don't have to do it super thoroughly. We happen to be getting a little bit of decent amount of rain recently, so I'm not going to water these too much. So I have my 12 tomato plants transplanted. I have them watered. So at this point, what I'm going to want to do is lay down a layer of a mulch. In this case, I use alfalfa. So there's 3 reasons why I like to choose alfalfa. The first being, obviously, like any mulch or hay, whatever you use, it's going to help the soil retain moisture. The sun's not going to dry it out as quickly, so that's the main reason you want to use some type of a mulch. Why I like to use alfalfa is alfalfa tends to not have barely, if any, weed seeds in it, like hay might. And number 2 is it adds a lot of nutrients back into your soil. So after the growing season's over, I'll just kind of lightly mix this into the soil, and it actually does help amend the soil a little bit. And the third reason I use alfalfa, again, or any mulch, is when you put it onto your soil, anytime it rains, one of your biggest concerns could be water splashing back up onto the underside of your leaves. So basically, a hard rain will hit the soil, it'll splash up and get onto the bottom underside of your leaves. That can cause all sorts of problems for your tomatoes. I'm not saying it will, but if you can avoid it, I would try and avoid it, and mulch is one of the ways to kind of help you avoid it. Now, when your tomato plants get a lot bigger, it's not going to be as much of a concern because you could trim about the first foot or so of branches off the bottom up until where you see your first set of fruit at. So that's not going to be an issue in the future, but for now, I don't want mud splattering all over the bottom side of my brand new, just transplanted tomato seeds. That's why I'm going to lay down a layer of mulch, or in this case, alfalfa. I have my alfalfa mulch ready to go. They're watered, they're fertilized. I got posts in most of them. There's a couple more, I need to put a few more in. But other than that, I'm pretty much done. Now it's just almost just a waiting game at this point to let these come up a little bit, at which point we're probably going to end up starting to prune some of them, and I'll do a video on how I do that. I hope everyone found this video helpful. Leave your likes and comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already, and I will see y'all in the next video. Thank you.